Bonsoir tout le monde. Numéro 1, appel. Tous les membres du conseil sont présents. Item 2, déclaration et reconnaissance des terres territoriales et moment de réflexion. Conseiller Lalonde.
Thank you. We acknowledge that we're on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe and the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, and Kanyen-Kahaka peoples. And we acknowledge our shared obligation to respect, honor, and sustain these lands and the natural resources contained within.
Merci, conseiller Lalonde. Attendu que le Canada est fondé sur les principes qui reconnaissent la suprématie de Dieu et la primauté du droit, prenons un moment de réflexion personnelle. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras sait porter l'épée, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Merci. OK, on tombe à l'item numéro 4, adjonction, effacement ou modification. J'avais l'item 18B pour conseillère Deacon, Pedestrian Crossing at Saint-Guillaume. Et j'ai any other items from members of council? No. I'd like to add 18C as well, Rec Complex opening timeline. C'est beau. Any other changes or anything else? No? Then we'll go to item number 5, adoption of the agenda. Motion to approve the agenda as amended, and this is moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Deacon. Call for the vote. All in favor and pass. Thank you, Council. Item number 6, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Any members? Seeing none. Moving forward to item number 7, adoption of minutes. Motion to approve our February 9th council meeting minutes. This is moved by Councillor Lalonde, seconded by Councillor Deacon. Call for the vote. All in favor and pass. Thank you, Council. Item number 8, presentations. We have none. Numéro 9, délégation. On n'en a pas. Number 10, consent items. So all items listed under the consent items will be enabled by one motion. A majority vote is required for the adoption of the consent items. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a request is made prior to the time council votes on the motion that a consent item be separated from the motion. That separated item would be considered immediately thereafter. So motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented, and this is moved by Councillor Lawrence, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Call for the vote. All in favor and passed. Thank you, Council. Moving to item 11, reports from departments and council committees. Item A, that council receive report PD 2026-01 dated February 23rd, 2026, and approve the zoning bylaw amendment to change the zoning of the subject land from L1 zone to L2 zone to add the following use to the already permitted uses within the L1 zone, i.e. mini warehouse and public storage. So this is a zoning change for the Kin Club storage building, I believe. Anything to add, Monsieur Bourgon? No. Any questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, we'll move to item B. Que le Conseil reçoive le rapport CSASFS 2026-06 daté du 23 février et adopte le règlement pour le financement du projet du service sanitaire de la rue Church pour la part des résidents. Quelque chose à rajouter, M. Bourgon?
Non, rien à ajouter. Peut-être autre simplement le fait qu'il y a un certain délai à apporter ce document au Conseil parce que le projet a été effectué en plusieurs phases. Puis on voulait s'assurer que tous les travaux étaient complétés puis payés avant de pouvoir apporter le dossier au Conseil.
OK. Merci. Questions, commentaires, membres du Conseil? Conseiller Armstrong.
Yeah, just more a confirmation. For properties that may be severed or divided, the charges to connect will be shared with the existing property owners as per happened in several other instances like this?
Monsieur Bourgon?
True, Mr. Mayor. So there's already several future property included in that project that the property owners know that they have the ability to sever in a short period of time. So proper laterals were installed during that project. So they're taking account here in this cost sharing. If a new severance would happen in the future, like we've done in the past, we would redo the calculation to issue a credit to everybody else.
Thank you. That's what I want to know.
And also that would come back to council to pass under a new bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Item number, any other questions on this item? No? Item number C. Pardon me? I'm sorry, go ahead, Councillor Lowe.
Yes, it's just a comment. I want to maybe recognize the fact that it was all the way back in 2019 where the estimate was just shy of $26,000 during the public meeting and in the presentations. And indeed, as things turn out in 2026, there's only about an $800 difference between what the estimate was in 2019 and what it will actually be now. And I think I appreciate how close staff was to being right on the number, considering that, you know, there's 7 years difference between the two. And it was information that some people had, that expectation was there that it would be close to what that estimate was, while others thought it would be much higher. So I guess just want to recognize the work of staff that this estimate given in 2019, you know, except for about $800 worth, is very close to what was projected 7 years ago.
Monsieur Bourgon, comment qu'on a fait ça? Parce qu'avec l'inflation qu'on a eue, il n'y a personne qui aurait pu prédire. Est-ce que vous avez une, what is it, crystal ball?
Mais là, dans le fond, c'est je dois avouer que le contrat donné entre les deux entrepreneurs, tout s'est passé en 2020. Okay. Donc, le contracteur a honoré ses prix aussi de 2020, donc j'ai pas 100% de crédit. Puisqu'on présente au conseil, c'est vraiment les prix là, qui étaient établis à ce moment-là.
C'est beau. Merci beaucoup. Merci, conseiller Lalonde. Autre commentaire sur cet item-là? Non? OK, on tombe à l'item, la prochaine item C. Merci. Alors, pour l'item C, que the council receives report CSASFS 2026-07 dated February 23rd, 2026, and approve the allocation of $46,296.43 for from the 2026 UCPR growth revenue to the Community Improvement Plan CIP reserve, and 2, to transfer the remaining $498,291.57 to be divided equally between the Municipal Growth Reserve and the Wastewater Treatment Plant Expansion Reserve. So just a little context on this, and I think I've spoken to every council member around this. This is something that came out of counties in terms of supporting growth. The added levy from what was originally planned to what was received because of growth is going back to the municipalities. And for us, for Russell Township, with the growth that we had, that translates roughly to $540 some odd thousand. And so essentially, the argument that came at counties to activate this is that municipalities are really faced with doing a lot of upfront costs. Although we do have development charges that support some of that upfront cost, there is a lot of other aspects that are not always covered by development charges. And so an argument was brought forward for the municipalities that are in growth mode right now to get some support. So this was a one-time allocation, and it's being treated as a one-time allocation right now in the recommendations that are coming from staff. But there is a willingness, or certainly an interest in looking at this a little deeper at the county level right now, with a push to look at some sort of policy where there would be some sort of reduction or a certain amount per year on a reducing scale for, say, 4 years of all the trailing growth levy increases that happen through the years. And so it's not formulated yet. But I feel that this is something that will still possibly come out of this term of council at the counties, which would be great if it was regular revenue. In this particular case, it's a one-time, and therefore I think it's being recommended for reserves, which is the best way because it's not an ongoing amount. So anything else to add, Monsieur Dagenet, on that?
Well, I had an introduction prepared, but you...
Go ahead. Do you want to
did
say it in
well.
French?
No, it's good.
Okay. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, can just be reminded what is funded from the municipal growth reserve? What do we fund
Sure.
from that reserve?
Thank you. Monsieur Dagenet?
Well, every year when we do the budget, we have a lot of incoming expense that are seen as one time. So it's only for this year we'll be doing this study, or this year we're adding this position, so we need some money to pay for the equipment that employee will need. So those are the types of projects that we use the growth management fund to finance them.
Yeah, so the idea again is that we can't, originally I thought why don't we put it in our asset management reserve? But the asset management reserve plan that we have now is to meet a certain annual threshold of how much is put aside. And so the impact of moving that money there would be a lot more minimal, and it's a one-time amount, so.
And just to add, it's projects in line with growth. So
Yes.
those one-time fees or those studies are because the township is growing. So.
And again, that was a push from the county level, or the argument from the county level to get that money back to the municipalities that created that growth to kind of help them support those initial growth costs that come with that. Councillor Lauren.
Is the municipal growth reserve defined, or is it up to council?
Monsieur Dagenet.
Well, every year at budget, we present the balance and we present which projects we pay with we finance with the growth reserve. So council has the final say on how we're adding funds to that reserve and how we're subtracting funds to that reserve.
And I get that, but I think my question is more specific to that. So I know some reserves are created and identified specifically for a certain category of expenses. Well, we call it the growth reserve. Does that limit council to say, well, there's something that comes up at the council table, we don't know where it's being funded from, council can make a decision and say, we would like it funded through the municipal growth reserve funding. And I want to know whether or not there are restrictions to that reserve that does not allow us to use it for certain things because it's defined, or are we just calling it a municipal growth reserve and that reserve can be accessed for anything?
Monsieur Dagenet. Monsieur Godin.
Merci, M. le maire. Bonsoir, chers membres du conseil. So it is defined, we have a reserve management policy, so that kind of defines the use of it, how it's built up and what type of projects it can be used towards. But that's a municipal policy, and council could always revise that policy and make changes, but it is, I think in the sense that you were asking, it is defined with certain specific allocations there.
Can
Follow-up?
Can I or council and/or council receive a copy of what the definition for that, for those defined items for that specific reserve could be used for, please? I don't need it right this minute, I'm just
No,
saying,
no,
can
we'll
be
do
sent
that in
to us,
follow-ups, Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we
that
can
I
send
know?
yeah, we'll
Thank
do
you.
that as part of the follow-ups. Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Deacon.
Yeah, I was struggling earlier today with the rationale for the 50-50 split between the growth management and the water wastewater treatment plant reserve. It seemed rather arbitrary to me, and I know that we weren't expecting this windfall, but it's also, if there's an opportunity to be strategic about where we're putting those funds right from the get-go, I would have rather had seen that. But I do understand that year over year, we will have more precision about what the wastewater treatment plant project looks like, as well as whether there are year-over-year funds coming from the county. So just a comment that if this is something that does happen again, I would like to see more strategic formula and rationale that's defining that split or recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything to add on that comment, Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Dagenet?
For sure, I agree with this comment, and as we all know, like, I've started here about 2 years ago, and this project was not on our radar. Now it is, so we're starting to put money on the side for it. So, and as we move along, we'll have more information on the wastewater treatment plant. So I hope for the 27 budget, we'll have more information to provide, and we'll have a better financial plan backing up this project.
Yeah, and I can tell you that willingness at counties really is to have some sort of, 4-year or 5-year trailing growth reserve money coming back to the municipalities that are growing, so to support that. Councillor Lauren?
This discussion triggers more questions. The wastewater treatment plant expansion, where are those funds expected to come from? And I say that because wastewater and water and sewer are all fee-based programs, not tax-based programs. This fee coming from growth seems to be tax-based funding. So we're going to interchange tax-based funding with user-based fee structure. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, so the only thing that I would, and I think the argument is fair, or the question is fair, but I think it's fair also to assume that 99.9% of growth is all serviced growth. And so unless if there is a 1 or 2% that's not, then we could maybe set that aside in terms of the fairness aspect of it. But Monsieur Dagenet, Monsieur Godin, anything to add on that?
Well, I think this is what you added, Mr. Mayor, is great, and also the way we see it is this. Well, I compare it with it's a new rec complex for the township, and the rec complex is financed with a strategy that is based on user fees and also on DCs, so development charge, and also on taxation. So to be able to pay for the rec complex, we've implemented an increase in taxation of 1%. And as we all know, not every resident will be using the rec complex. So by starting to put money on the side, we'll probably be able to avoid these taxation down the road, because the user fees itself won't be able to pay for the whole project on its own. The user fee right now, well, in 25 was $370 per resident using that service. We increased it by $20 in 26, and that amount goes into this reserve. and we're planning to increase it by $10 for the next 9 years. So that financial plan will bring us a revenue stream of 1 million per year in 10 years. Now, we expect with a project of that magnitude that we'll need probably between 2 to 2.5 million of revenue stream per year to pay for the wastewater treatment plant. So we'll need to take money somewhere else, because the user fee, if we really want to double it, and it becomes, it's not 500 in 10 years, it's now 700 or 800, and it pays 100% of the wastewater treatment plant. If that's what council wish for, then we'll put that plan in place, but I don't feel as a resident that fee will be acceptable, so.
Thank you. Follow-up, Councillor Lauren?
What's the percentage of people who are on water in our municipality and who are on private services? Do we know?
Monsieur Bourgon, est-ce que vous avez cette information-là?
I have a number, but that doesn't count Limoges. So I would need to come back to council. to
Okay,
have an
so we
but
can
it's a
just add that.
small- It's a small percentage.
But is it fair to ask, Councillor Lauren, if out of the growth that we are seeing, what's serviced versus non-serviced?
Yes, it's a few percent.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know that as well, because I think the argument is fair to look at it that way. The argument that Monsieur Dagenet puts forth in terms of how we're financing some of the other stuff, like the rec complex, not every member is going to use it, but we do have user fees specifically for water sewer. So it's an interesting, it's something I think that council will need to, va se pencher dessus éventuellement, mais si on aurait les pourcentages, je pense que ça pourrait clarifier aussi la valeur de l'argument comme tel.
But sorry, Mr. Mayor, but we're being asked tonight to approve an allocation of a split, but we don't have answers to some of the questions that we're asking. So it's difficult to make that decision to say, yes, I agree with the methodology or the concept, if
That's fair, that's fair.
I don't have an answer to the other questions.
Yeah, that's fair. Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, carrying on from some of Councillor Roy's comments, the wastewater treatment plant, the need for that is triggered by growth in the serviced lots, additional coming on to the township. Therefore, I would see some of this going into the wastewater treatment plant reserve. On the other hand, I'm not sure if I'm getting this the right balance until I have a little bit more information both on the demands of the wastewater treatment plant reserve and on the municipal growth reserve. I would move to defer this to the next meeting with a few of those statistics so we can answer the questions that Councillor Lauren has put to us.
Thank you. Councillor Deakin?
What a great conversation. This goes back to my comment where I was struggling with it, and Councillors Lorrain and Armstrong seem to be struggling with that as well. So I would support a deferral as well.
Thank you. So we'll add items.
Suggest to pull the item.
Yeah, we'll add item C to be removed. Madame Camille-Laflamme? Great discussion, agreed. Thank you. Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, Monsieur Mayor. I just wanted to respond to an earlier question about the reserve, the gross management fund, and its description, its definition. So in our policy, it does state that the reserve is to be used for growth-related projects, studies, and/or operations which are not covered by DCs. So it's kind of to support DCs in growth-related projects and studies.
Yeah, and so for that particular aspect, it was important for the county, at the county level, that this money went back to growth. And so I think in that sense, it meets that requirement. It's just the percentage is how we're splitting it, I think.
Yep. And on that point, I just want to clarify too, because I understand your questioning about the user fee versus taxation base. We weren't looking at it necessarily as a taxation revenue that we're splitting up. It's more like a grant from an upper level government, which has come with not direction, I mean, I think it's up to council's discretion, but the expectation that it be applied towards growth-related projects, which we have that fund, which is for that, and we also have a significant growth-related project that we know is going to be needing some support. So that's where the 50/50, it's not a scientific-based
Yeah.
calculation, but it's to kind of tackle two challenges that we have.
Yeah, I think there's some good arguments on both sides, and I think, the deferral could clarify from our perspective here and at least have from our perspective a public-facing, rationale as to why a certain amount was moved. And at the end of it, we may even choose to say 60/40 or whatever it may be, and it depends on once we have that additional information. Do I see any more hands raised? Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, and I appreciate the comment and the thought process on the methodology that you used and that where your position is. Unfortunately, I don't share the same position, that I don't treat it as a grant. I treat it as taxation, growth increase from taxation. And that's why I look at it a little bit differently. So, thank you.
Fair enough. Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. So no, I can appreciate that. I would just ask, because we probably won't have much more discussion other than deferring it later on, but is there some specific information that the council's looking to obtain?
I think if I understand correctly, once we defer it, we can clarify it, but I think the request was to understand the amount of service versus non-service growth we have. Monsieur Beaugrand?
I can answer that one for 2025. So
Yeah, but
90
I'm okay to get it all back at once because we are going to defer it, so, but now I'm kind of curious. Could you?
So it's 98% of our growth in 25 were serviced by water and sewer.
Yeah, so whatever amount we put in to that should reflect that, at a minimum, if we want to be fair, that 98%. But then there's the whole question of splitting it to the other growth side of the reserve, why 50/50? And so understanding the policies for those reserves, I think coming back, Monsieur Godin, with the policy of the reserves, how are they funded at this stage? Like what level of funding they have, I think would help guide council's decision, if that makes sense. Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, I guess for the next meeting and information, I'd just like to know what percentage of the municipality is service versus unserviced.
Okay, so add that as well. Okay, we're good. So we'll push to defer this item for our next meeting. Thank you, council members. We are moving to item D. Que le Conseil reçoive le rapport d'information ICODEV 2026-03 daté du 23 février 2026 et que le Conseil fasse part de ses commentaires aux suggestions concernant les initiatives et les prochaines étapes présentées dans ce rapport. Anything to add, Monsieur Dagenet, to the report? I'm not going to say anything until you do this time.
Yes, so this report provides an update on the current state of primary care in Russell Township and summarize the work completed so far with our local partners and the Healthcare Task Force. I want to highlight that the township has only been actively involved in this file for about 3 to 4 months. So for the administration, this is a new and highly complex area governed by provincial models, ministry requirements, and structure that are very different from traditional municipal responsibilities. We still have a great deal to learn about how the system operates, what the constraints are, and where the township can realistically play a role. In this early stage, the Healthcare Task Force has been instrumental in helping us understand the landscape, the challenge faced by local physicians, and the opportunities available to support improved access to primary care. Tonight's report outlines what we have learned so far, the initiative now underway, and our preliminary work plan for next steps. We are seeking council's comments and suggestions as this work continues to advance.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Dagenet, puis merci à votre équipe pour présenter le rapport. I've got a couple of questions before I turn over to council, and those will probably likely be for follow-ups. But do we have an exact understanding, like hard deadlines for the FHO physician requirement?
No, not at this point.
We don't, okay. And do we have a good understanding of what happens, and could we maybe make it public in terms of a follow-up what happens if the clinic loses the FHO status? Because I think that's important to understand why we're going to make certain decisions. So do you have that answer?
No, I don't
No.
have that answer,
Yeah.
but for sure we'll bring
So as
it
a follow-up,
as a
thank you so
follow-up.
much. In regards to the municipal enabled clinic model, how does that impact the existing private clinics is another question I would have. So if I'm a private clinic here in Embrun, for example, and all of a sudden the municipality starts supporting, whether it's administrative, a hybrid model, or whatever, have we looked at the potential impact with regular clinics?
Well, that's an excellent question, and I have the same question. So that's why I'm saying we're trying to find our place in this complex, and it's, we've been talking with doctors that operates their own health, leur propre centre
Ouais.
de santé. Puis on parle aussi avec des groupes c'est plus une organisation qui l'opère. Fait que c'est une excellente, comme j'ai dit, c'est une excellente question, puis c'est une question qu'on veut, on cherche présentement les informations pour pouvoir la répondre.
OK.
Parce qu'on ne veut pas doubler qu'est-ce qui est déjà offert. On veut trouver notre place puis voir, OK, comment qu'on peut aider la situation.
Oui, je suis d'accord, je suis content d'entendre ça. Si je regarde le rapport comme tel, moi, je veux juste m'assurer que je suis sur la même page. C'est que, in terms of looking at how we're going to get involved, comment qu'on va s'impliquer, la prochaine étape, c'est de regarder comme un genre de financial feasibility. Après ça, j'ai physician focus groups, to do physician focus groups. Then look at municipal alignment, where do we fit into that? Or options, and then OHT engagement and possibly a pilot design. That's kind of how I read through it. Does that make sense? Is that how it's being presented? Okay. And then the only other comment that I would say that I have on here is that we speak of unattached residents, like those that don't have a doctor or a nurse practitioner. So can we tie any projects down the future? Can we tie any of our projects or investments from the municipality in terms of that unattached residents number? Because I'd like to, if we are going to invest as a municipality, I'd like to make sure that we have targets and measurable, like, are we actually having an impact, spending municipal dollars on something that, as you say, traditionally we haven't. So I think that for me, in terms of the financial feasibility piece, once we look at that, I would like to see what are the targets in terms of the unattached residents. What are we trying to aim for? And then finally, in terms of timeline and moving this forward, what is the timeline?
Well, we've presented a short term, like what we're planning to do in the short term. So we're meeting with the task force again in mid-March. And we want to put a plan in place so we can start meeting with different, the federal, the provincial ministers. We want to gather up as much information as possible because there are grants available, but to be able to apply on grants, you need to have a project in place. So it's we're aiming for before June that we'll have way more information and we'll have more of a plan in place of where we want to, what's our next step.
Okay, so sometime before June, it would come back to council in terms of what are the next steps, where are we going, what do we know,
Yeah.
where do we fit in as a municipality into that? Okay. Merci. Thank you, everyone, for your patience for my questions. Councillor Deacon.
Thank you. Just point of information, it's really important that we don't use the term private clinic loosely because that means different things to a lot of different people. And here I think we're talking about privately enabled clinics. Just want to be really clear on that. So I'm grateful for this report, the update and the prompt. And where my mind went first is that we need to be very clear about mandates. So just to take a step back, in 2022, AMO released a report urging the province to do a social and economic prosperity review. The numbers at that time showed that in 2022, Ontario municipalities spent $3.3 billion on healthcare services and received only 1.8 from the province in grants or provincial transfers to support that essential downloading of responsibility. So that obviously puts a strain on our local tax base. It also fosters a culture between municipalities of competing for professionals in each of our communities rather than a more sophisticated provincial system guiding and responding to those needs. So if we step into this space, is the province going to be a committed partner? Is there sustainable funding available? What precedent are we setting or contributing to in this wider provincial challenge? And how are we impacting other players, as you, Mr. Mayor, alluded to, in terms of there may be other potential solutions emerging in our community that we certainly don't want to step in the way of, but maybe perhaps collaborate with or enable. So what really was interesting to me about this report, and we haven't talked about it yet tonight between the exchange, was that Ontario is transforming primary care right now. And I think there's an immediate need that I want to underscore that was mentioned in the report about engaging with provincial subject matter experts in addition to provincial elected representatives. There was in the report a reference to Your Health, a Plan for Connected and Convenient Care. There's also Dr. Philpott's Ontario Primary Care Action Plan. I want to tap into the knowledge that's there. I have seen some interviews where Dr. Philpott talks about there being a role for municipalities to play, but it's not defined. And so I want to go to those subject matter experts and say, when you say municipalities should be involved in primary care, what exactly do you mean? And what are exactly the models, the pilots that have launched around our province that you want us to be looking at here in Russell Township? So that's a huge foundational piece for me before we're looking at feasibility of a municipal enabled clinics. I want to be visiting these different models. I want to get a sense of what they are and to hear from those leaders in the transformation of primary care what direction that their bus is going in, so that we make sure that we're getting on it and supporting it rather than building our own. Start with data. I did see in the report as well a really thoughtful effort in terms of public engagement with locals around what they're looking for in local healthcare services. I feel strongly that the guiding primary source of information on healthcare need in our community should be coming from the Ministry of Health, Ontario Health, healthcare partners. Maybe the township is conducting a complementary assessment to that, but I certainly don't want local anecdotal voices to be driving our understanding of the need here. And just to close, I do take the example set in the report itself, talking about that our community is not waiting passively, that we're mobilizing leadership and partnerships. And so in that spirit, I just want to offer that I'm happy to participate in the upcoming joint working session if my availability permits. As I mentioned, visiting other communities to better understand their models, as well as when it comes down to it, advocating directly with provincial partners. And I will say one of the advocacy pieces that I think we can be doing, a low-hanging fruit, if I may, for this table, is related to the rural definition and the fact that in the report they were referring to Belleville's $150,000 bonus that they're able to offer. Rural communities across our province are able to offer very competitive, very sizable bonuses that could be put towards clinic enabling costs for physicians up front. And we're not able to access that because of what I understand is a bit of a puzzle that's not perfectly fitting together in terms of why we are not defined federally as a rural area. So that's one that a low-hanging fruit just to close off. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent points, Councillor Deakin. So we took notes on those and we'll add that to there. Any other comments? Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, just a few things. Who is all of the players in the task force. There's obviously a good number of players, and I don't think I've got an exhaustive list of who are members of this task force.
Monsieur Dagenet?
Well, I could name them, but we can just, in the next council follow-up, we'll put
Yeah,
their
we-
names and we'll
yeah.
put their pedigree.
That's fine with me. And the other, I looked at the statistic that was there, that 8.8% of the township doesn't have a family doctor, and having had somebody at the dog park tell me about that in the last 2 days, they don't have a family doctor. But I also wonder how many have convenient health care. So I know somebody that just moved to Ottawa from Hawkesbury and was forced to keep family doctor in Hawkesbury that they've had for some time, because getting a family doctor in Orleans is near impossible. So I wonder how many new residents come into the township from elsewhere that are forced to keep a family doctor some distance away because of the lack of services available in this area. And again, you know, that's a provincially, how could I say, that's a provincial irritant that the province is imposing upon us, that you have to keep something, a family doctor from a significant distance. So this report in June additional, I'll leave some of my comments and whatever till I see more.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, just a few things I'd like to go through as well, and certainly support the comments that were made by Councillor Deacon. And I empathize with staff that you've only been involved in this for a short time to this point. And I heard the word mandate, and I think we need to start thinking about clarifying some of those areas that have already come up. In that sense, I mean, we might still, I think, be in a sort of a needs analysis period at this point. I wasn't sure who wrote this report. I had to get some clarification. There are no names on it. I know there's a task force. I know some of the names. I know people who were on it who are anxious to get back to it and aren't sure whether they will be or not. And I assured them that for the little that I do know about it, that I would expect they will be called back. They're caregivers, health caregivers in the community. I agree that there's pieces to this puzzle missing, and I know from reading the report that certainly, you know, what is it the township can do in this area, and there's some leaning towards maybe properties or redundant buildings and what have you, and I think those are some of the obvious places to point where we could potentially give some assistance, either land or what have you. By the same token, you know, I came here in '83. In '86, I think the Russell Medical Clinic opened, I'm reminded. So if it opened in '85, '86, we were about, 7,500 population in the township at the time. So if we were 7,500 then, when that clinic opened in Russell, and we're close to 22,000, 22,500 now, can you imagine how there's been a strain on that facility for quite some time, not keeping up at all with, and we saw the results of that a few years ago with hundreds of residents lined up outside. The point I'm trying to get to here, though, is that it may not be just about buildings and space and a hub, although I understand those pieces are ultimately valuable in putting something new and something forward-thinking together. But we still have a crisis with doctors and caregivers and physicians, and I had the chance to send this report by one of our own Citizen Recognition Award recipients, Dr. Daryl Menard, and his wife Janet, who's a nurse practitioner. And they commented back to me quickly, and I won't go into detail, but suffice it to say that they found some of the information to be quite interesting, quite meaningful. They wanted to put emphasis on the fact that nurse practitioners not doctors, are becoming some of the most valuable resources for medical support in communities because they can give prescriptions out, they can do many, many things, and some of them in other areas, other municipalities and regions are actually running the clinics at nighttime. When you have a nurse practitioner, and we know that in Russell because we have a nurse practitioner really who's doubling as a doctor right now, still working within their means and jurisdiction, but nevertheless, so we've got to find our way through this. They're hybrids. They're also talking about evenings. We need to have these places open in the evenings with so many people working during the daytime. This will have to be taken into consideration. I'll leave it at that, but I would look forward myself, and I don't know if it's going to be a public meeting when it comes to March time, because I know there's a March planned gathering of the task force again, and whether that'll be a public meeting or not, I'm not sure. Like I say, I know some people are hoping. There was a Jessica Genet, who's with the sapling group in Russell with OTs and speech therapists and the rest of it, who's anxious to get back into that, I guess, who was invited in. Not clear on some of the next steps herself there. I read the stuff about, maybe planning something as well for the Meet Me on Main Street. That would be good. I think it's such a serious and important issue, and one that we're still trying to acquaint ourselves properly with, and I empathize with that we might prefer a more formal setting for some of those next discussions, notwithstanding that you could do something at Meet Me on Main Street, but that's sort of a wide open sort of venue with lots of noise and things going on. It's a place to collect data for sure, but I'm looking forward through staff to find out, get more clarity here and see where some of these pieces of the puzzle that I'm not seeing just yet are going to fit and where we're going to fit in. And like I say, just to circle back, notwithstanding the fact that there are properties and what have you that we can maybe offer or consider, or they can be reviewed in the overall review of things as to how properties are used, but we really have to come to rest on the burning issue of the day, which is doctors and physicians themselves. I say that because the clinic has been there since 1986. There's been no expansion of it, nothing. There's been no renovation, restoration, expansion of any kind, and it's to wonder why that didn't happen through the last 40 years of me living here and watching the population explode. So I'll just leave it at that, but I'm really looking forward to getting a better understanding through staff of where the next steps are and maybe the needs analysis that still needs to happen here.
Thank you. Councillor Deakin?
Yeah, if I can just add to that, I didn't say this earlier in my comments, but I don't mean to be a navel-gazer, recognizing that the clinic in Russell could be in a real acute crisis in terms of losing its FHO status. And so I think there's, short-term moves and supports that I'm particularly interested in hearing about in supporting that clinic, as well as the longer-term questions and fitting into systems transformation, as I mentioned. Some good news that I wanted to share, I was looking this up, that the United Counties launched, as of today, the virtual triage and assessment center. So if anybody in this room knows anybody in our community that does not have access to a family doctor, there is now a health service for residents in the counties to access non-urgent health concerns through virtual triage, and I believe some in person as well, as close as Castleman. So it's just reflecting again what is our role here locally and what is urgent.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? Monsieur Dagenet, est-ce qu'on vous a donné assez? Un autre commentaire aussi, là? OK.
Well, very short. I just want to ensure staff that some of the material that I got corresponds the last 24, 48 hours from doctors, nurses, and some, I'm going to pass all of that on to Monsieur Dagenet
Ouais.
after
Très
the
apprécié,
meeting.
ouais. Merci beaucoup, conseiller Lalonde. Anything to add to that, Monsieur Dagenet?
Well, the goal today was to update council of where we are, and I agree. I would like to be in a better place, but that's where we are. But we're going to be gathering all that feedback, and we'll be bringing another report to council in June, and we won't have a miracle, but we'll give you an update.
C'est beau, merci beaucoup. En attente du rapport, juste une fois qu'on recevra l'information sur how pressing the FHO issue is for the clinic in Russell. I know there was a letter of support sent from my office as well as from the MPP's office as well to support them, to give them an extension on timing, just to see if there is anything more that we can do to support, because it is obviously, that's, as Councillor Deacon alluded to, I think is a more pressing issue. And so if there is anything in between for council to consider, to please don't hesitate to bring that up. I think we can all agree that we'll do what we can to support that FHO status, which is really important. Okay. Good with everyone? Thank you. Great discussion again. This next one I'm going to read in French because I want to say the word in French because I think it's pretty cool. Alors que le Conseil reçoive le rapport ISPW 2026-01 daté du 23 février 2026 et approuve l'achat d'un camion chasse-neige tandem diesel Western Star 2026 au montant de 424 528,88 $, plus 7 471,71 sous de TVH pour un total de 432 059 $, d'augmenter le budget prévu de cet achat de 15 000 $. Monsieur Bourgon, quelque chose à rajouter? Non, c'est 15, on parle de 15 000, je sais que c'est 15 000, mais sur un achat de 400 quelques mille, c'est quand même assez petit comme montant, c'est ça?
Oui, c'est environ 3%, puis ça sera pris de la réserve de remplacement des avoirs.
Ma seule question, ça serait sur le potentiel d'une vente éventuelle du camion qu'on va vendre pour 40 000. Est-ce que ça, c'est dans le calcul du 400 quelques mille?
Non, présentement, dans la source de financement, c'est 100% pour la réserve de remplacement des avoirs. Donc, une fois que le camion sera vendu au moment où on aura la nouvelle pièce d'équipement, ce revenu-là va retourner en réserve.
Puis on parle d'un chasse-neige pour un autre chasse-neige, c'est ça?
Exactement, oui.
Je savais pas que ça s'appelait un chasse-neige, mais c'est pas mal cool comme nom. Merci. Questions, commentaires, membres du Conseil? No? Yeah, Councillor Lorne?
If I read this correctly, we only got one bid on it?
Monsieur Bourgon?
Yes, that's correct. Only one. And that's been the case for, I want to say, the last 10 years. We're joining it's a tender joined with the county and other municipalities. And over the last, I want to say about 10 years, we received only one bid.
But so the tenders are at the county level, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so there is it's a much larger tenders that we
But
typically
there's
set
not
up.
too many companies
That provide.
that provide those type of equipment in our region.
Okay,
And the one that we received the bid, we've been purchasing our snow plows from them over I've been here almost 15 years, and every one of them were bought through that same company.
thank you. Any other questions, members of council? No? Moving to item F, that council receives report ISW ATWW 2026-01 dated February 23rd and approve the new proposed water wastewater bylaw. So this is an update to the bylaw addressing changes to building code, specifically around the backflow issue that to protect against backflow. Anything else to add, Monsieur Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. So that's the main reason why we are bringing back that bylaw to council. So now we can start with that addition to the bylaw. We can ask any new businesses, and we can start doing our work to implement that program.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions or comments? Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, why are we imposing it on a private water system?
Monsieur Bourgon?
In some through Mr. Mayor, some cases, and it happened in the past, that there's a possibility of cross-contamination for those type of systems as well.
Yeah, so if I understand correctly, like to prevent backflow into the system, even if it's a private system, it could have an impact on the municipality as a whole, correct?
Exactly, it could be some types of current connection, and we've seen that situation in the past. So we want to, and we're basing ourselves in other program that exists in Ontario as well.
Thank you. Follow up, Councilor
My,
Armstrong?
my question becomes, we have a lot of farm properties, et cetera, all have private water systems. Now we're imposing if they modify their water system at all, they've got to add a backflow in, some farm on Route 500. I don't think they'll look kindly and saying, well, there'd be a connection, possible of a connection to the municipal water system. If there's cases where there is a potential cross-contamination, then I could see imposing it. But where there is no potential for cross-contamination, especially in the lifetime of some of those private systems on our farms, I'm sort of leery of imposing this on private systems.
Thank you, Councillor. Anything to add, Mr. Bogo?
Yes, so there's a full exercise to be done prior to as well. So we're focusing, the target, it's really within our servicing areas. And before looking to those commercial, different establishment, we'll have a risk assessment to do as well with part of that exercise of that program.
So, Mr. Bogon, the policy that we're updating here would still be in effect for those rural properties, though?
Well, it's for the bylaw applies to property that are serviced by our municipal water and sewer.
Okay, so the bylaw is specifically for serviced properties?
Yes.
Okay, so I think that negates the concern that Councillor Armstrong is bringing forward. Is that
My
correct?
understanding, yes. So those are outside our servicing areas.
Okay, so we would never go to a local farm and say, oh, you need that back, or a new.
Unless they're serviced by our municipal water, because we do have farms in some areas where they are connected to our
Yeah,
system.
okay, that seems to make sense. Councillor Armstrong?
I certainly don't see that explicit here, that it applies only to water or properties that are within the serviced area. And as I was looking at it, my daughter lives on Cloutier, and she has a private system. If she has to upgrade her system, she would be subject to this, although there is no water service down her street whatsoever. And there are others that I know of that would also be affected with this.
Mr. Bourgon, is there anything in the bylaw that demonstrates that it's only for serviced properties?
Yeah, because it's our water and wastewater bylaw, so it really applies
it's
to
only
any
to
properties
township-
that are connected to our system. So if a location is not connected, well, the bylaw doesn't apply.
Does not apply, so we don't collect. But the
There's no-
bylaw, when the services go across my property or in front of my property, that bylaw applies that I have to pay a
Exactly.
fee,
If
right?
there's no service, the bylaw does not apply.
No, but that bylaw states that I have to pay
If
a
that means
fee.
yes, because you have a lateral, so the bylaw would apply.
But I'm not serviced by the municipality.
Well, yes, it's your property's service if you have a lateral in front of your property.
Yeah, but if I'm still on a private service, correct me if I'm wrong, part of that bylaw applies, as Councillor Armstrong is arguing, because I would have to pay for that because of the lateral. I'm not connected, I'm on a private service, but part of that bylaw applies to me. And so
Yes.
what prevents somebody down the road saying, this aspect also applies to you?
I'm not sure I'm following anymore.
The lateral that comes across my road, I'm not connected, I'm on a private service, I'm not, but if I was, the bylaw says that I have to pay a certain amount
Yes.
because I have a lateral. I'm not on the service, correct?
Mhm.
But the bylaw still directs me to pay something, even though I'm not on the service. So the bylaw does apply to non-serviced, technically non-serviced, right?
Yes, but you do have the ability to connect, which a farm on a rural road where there was no infrastructure does not fall under this bylaw.
Okay, so let me ask it a different way. A new house being built will have to have this system in place even though they're on a private
The
system.
bylaw would apply, but the backwater system or program would not apply because of the risk factor.
Okay, so because of the risk factor.
Yes.
Councillor Armstrong?
Where can I find the risk factor defined in the bylaw?
It won't be part of the bylaw, it's part of the program itself that
Yeah,
we're
which makes
currently
sense.
working on, yes.
So it's not defined, the risk factor piece?
It will be, yes, in the program itself. So
Okay.
that's the first step here, to include that in our bylaw. So any new, and it will allow as well our building official to be able to justify that, the
But it-
installation.
But on a private service, on a house that's being built, even within boundaries, that is not going to be serviced, this will not apply whatsoever.
No.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on this? All right, moving to item G. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Bourgon. Item G. The council receives the revised chart dated February 23rd, 2026, with the proposed amendments to Council Procedural Bylaw 2021-127 and approve the proposed bylaw. So this is the finalized version following a good review by council. Anything to add on that, Madame Camille Laflamme?
No, Mr. Mayor, so there was only two things changed at number 10.3.11.
Merci. Question, commentaire, membre du conseil, conseiller Armstrong.
Yeah, just one thing. Will the timings of meetings or the absence of meetings towards the voting period, will they also affect committees?
Madame Camille Laflamme, I think once the election is called, are the committees all well, no, there's.
What I'm looking at is, we have a period where, as we get close to the election, the voting time, there are no more council meetings, and then there is a couple-week period
Before
after the election, before the next council comes into power. Does that period also affect committee meetings? And why I ask that is just because there happens to be, in the two committees that I'm chairing, scheduled for that period of time.
Yeah, I do believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, Madame Camille Laflamme, but the committees are generally disbanded once we start a new term of council, right? We reappoint committee members at every term of council, correct?
Correct, they have the same term as council.
Yeah, so once the election is called, like once we go into election period, that committee is technically non-existent until it's reconfirmed, correct? Councillor Lauren?
Each committee has the exact same length of time as council. So November 15th, when the new council comes in, all committees dissolve on that day. Prior to that, you can still have meetings up until November 14th with that committee, because that committee still exists, with the exception of the planning committee, which does maintain past the term of council until a new committee can be put in case there's matters that need to be done prior to the next council meeting. At least that's been our practice for the last 20 years.
Madame Camille Laflamme?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. And for the first part of the question from Councillor Armstrong, for the voting period, well, that would be very hard because I booked both halls, so you wouldn't have.
You wouldn't
the
have a
hall.
committee, yeah. I mean, we could have technically some committee meetings, we have them at the Dome and stuff like that, but yeah.
But the-
Okay, any follow-up on that, Councillor Armstrong?
No, that's fine, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Deacon, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, it was kind of similar to that concern. So we purposely don't have meetings of council, regular meetings of council during that voting period. So just from a electoral integrity perspective, is there any issue with committees meeting during the voting period? I would think that there would be, but
I don't think that we've scheduled in the past, have we had those, Councillor Lauren?
The
I
voting,
would-
the voting period's 6 days. It's Thursday to
Yeah.
Monday. We've never had or sorry,
Many
Wednesday to Monday. So there's never been any need for meetings during that specific 6-day window. So.
But it's not strictly in the
But it's
policy to
not-
say
yeah,
that.
But there's
that is-
nothing-
Do we need the ground rule?
Yeah, there's no council meeting over those 6 days, never has been.
Yeah.
But there has been meetings post-election with the lame duck council up until the new council is sworn in. Like, previous to this council, it was December 1st. And you had, your October 26 voting, and you had council till December 1st, right? So you still had 2 or 3 meetings that you did as a old council, but.
Councillor Deacon?
I believe in the procedural bylaw we have that is in front of us, it does say no meetings of council during the voting period.
Yes, or
So that's
committee
just my
meetings.
question, if we want to define specifically no meetings of committee during the voting period.
Madame Camille Laflamme?
Mr. Mayor, that would be in the committee bylaw, which is not this part. That's the
Okay.
procedural bylaw.
So it would be in the committee bylaw, in each of the committee bylaws, or the one committee
That's
bylaw, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it wouldn't be in the procedural bylaw, it would be specifically on the committee bylaw.
Yes.
Okay, that's fair.
This could be added when the next, there is a next.
Committee bylaw is updated.
That's a which-
Thank you.
Then I
Councillor
would-
Armstrong?
All I would do then is suggest that in the next few meetings, we bring the committee's bylaw back to council with amendments to conform, or at least
To
be
align.
run in parallel, align it with the procedural bylaw.
Madame Camille Laflamme, does that make sense?
If that's a direction of council, we can,
I think, are there other changes that are pending for the committee bylaw? I mean, with the
Mm,
survey that we brought, is that anything that we would put in bylaw? No.
nothing big that I can think of right
Yeah.
now.
I'm comfortable for it to come back when it's ready to come back. If council decides otherwise, I mean, we could add that. Okay? All right. Anything else on this item? Moving to item H, the council receives report CSAS CL 2026-01 dated February 23rd, 2026, and approve the proposed bylaw to appoint Alison Roy as deputy clerk effective immediately until April 5th, 2027. Anything to add, Madame Camille Laflamme?
Mr. Mayor, I'm just so happy that Ms. Alison Roy has accepted and that she will be on board with us to replace Maryse during her maternity leave. So, yeah, she's been a great help in the last over 7 months now that she's with us. And, yeah, she's proved herself, and we're very happy that she's joining the team at a higher level for a year.
Excellent, and we're very happy to see that as well. Any comments or questions from members of council on this item? No? Félicitations. Merci beaucoup. All right, moving on. Item I. Que le Conseil reçoive le rapport CSAS-COMMS 2026-01 daté du 23 février 2026 et approuve le règlement proposé relatif à la politique corporative de communication. Item I. Monsieur Dagenet.
This report brings forward the revised corporate communication policy and accompanying bylaw for council approval. As council may recall, the township communication policy was originally adopted in 2021. Since then, our communication practice, our organizational workflow, and the broader municipal communication landscape have continued to evolve. Following the adoption of the public engagement policy last year, administration undertook a full review of the communication policy to ensure that it aligns with the current best practice and support our commitment to clear, consistent, and effective communication with residents. The update policy includes improvements such as a revised communication plan timeline, straightened social media guidelines, removal of the platform X, formerly known as Twitter, and the integration of the public engagement policy. The proposed bylaw formalizes the CAO administration oversight for the policy ensures consistent application across all departments, and allows administration to update the policy as needed while preserving council strategic oversight.
Merci beaucoup. Deux questions pour vous de ma part, M. Dagenet. Premièrement, when we talk about digital signage, as you know, we are in discussions with adding a digital sign in Marionville. With local flavors, I know there's some fundraising for a community digital sign for Russell as well. And so in this particular policy, I didn't notice anything specific to those types of electronic signages. Would we not be in a good position right now, considering we're adopting these changes, to include a policy around that? So Marionville obviously will be at the community center, but we're dealing with 3 municipalities, and so we will need a specific policy related to that signage and process. And so would it not be worth including that right away in here? And same for the other sign. I know it's still a couple of years out for Russell there, but the community sign eventually, but.
Well, for the community sign, as you said, we're a couple of years off, so we're.
C'est pas la fin du monde, ouais.
But for the one in Marionville, it's gonna work as just like the one in Embrun, in front of the Embrun Arena. So there's so we'll be able to use the same format or the same structure to.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that the municipality of Dundas and Ottawa that are going to be contributing to it we will have to have a policy that promotes very specific Marionville Village announcements that we don't have here at the Embrun one, for example. You know, at the Embrun one, we're specifically promoting, in addition to municipal messaging, we're also promoting stuff going on in the community hall. But in Marionville, there will be community messaging, not just community hall messaging, and that community messaging has to be very specific to Marionville from all 3 municipalities. And although it's going to be on our property because they're paying for part of it, I think we need to address that in the policy. So I think it's a good opportunity because this will, as you know, will come relatively quickly. So I'm wondering if that could be added into there.
Well, the way I understood it for Marionville, the message needs to be aligned, or it needs to be impactful or for all the residents in Marionville. So it can be from an organization or a township event, but for Marionville. So it's the same thing with Embrun. If something happens in that hall, from an organization, we can present it onto that babillard. So it's.
Mais je pense que le règlement pour that electronic board va être différent quand même, parce que le contrôle, qui c'est qui fait le messaging, comme il faut le discuter, ça, parce qu'eux autres qui vont commettre de l'argent là-dessus, ils vont vouloir avoir un petit peu de contrôle là-dessus aussi. Fait que je sais qu'on n'a pas encore traversé ça, mais c'est parce qu'on est en train de faire l'update en ce moment que je me posais la question, est-ce que ça vaut la peine d'explorer ça tout de suite, parce que ça va arriver quand même sous peu. Je vois que M. Godin veut parler. Aussi,
pour moi, si on doit faire une entente différente, on va la faire. Mais je pense pas que ça a besoin d'être dans la politique de communication. Pour Marionville, la manière que moi je l'ai compris, c'est que c'est un message spécifique pour le village. Fait que mais c'est la municipalité de Russell qui appartient l'affiche et qui contrôle l'affiche. Fait que si la ville d'Ottawa voudrait mettre de l'information dessus, ça va passer au travers des mêmes channels que si une organisation non lucrative voudrait mettre quelque chose sur qui se passe à l'aréna d'Embrun sur le babillard d'Embrun. Fait que pour moi, la procédure, le flow est le même. C'est peut-être que là, il va y avoir de l'information qui va venir d'en dehors de la municipalité, mais en bout de ligne, c'est l'équipe de communication qui qui va finaliser puis qui va mettre la fiche, le babillard à jour.
OK. OK. Merci, je suis confortable avec ça. Councillor Lauren?
Just to confirm, this communication plan is strictly for township to communicate to the residents and does not impact council. Councils would still be under the council code of conduct. Is that my understanding? Specifically, we're talking about social media guidelines with potentially false or misleading information or other inaccurate content. Is that accurate?
Monsieur Dagenet?
Well, for me, it was for the residents. I was not aware that council had a different,
No, but this policy is
Code
for
of
staff, or is this policy for council?
oh, it's for staff.
Okay, that was my
Okay,
question.
sorry. I thought you were saying you had a different code of conduct.
We do. Well, we have a council code of conduct, and we have a council code of conduct with staff. So we have two different codes of conduct.
But the policy does speak to communication from council on there, right? So that's included in the policy, but I think the code of conduct, pardon me, is still kind of the overriding aspect to it.
So in this policy, if I go on to a social media and I put misleading information regarding township activities, does that fall under the policy or does that fall under the code of conduct?
Well, maybe Mr. Godin can back me or, but for me, the way I see it, we follow the policy. So if you're putting something that's
There's two policies.
misleading,
There's the code of conduct.
we're
yeah.
gonna hide it or delete it, or just like if you're a resident.
But
A comment
so you're
on
assuming
township.
I'm putting a comment on the township post,
Well,
correct?
Well, that's,
That's within their
That's-
control of that
yeah.
policy.
Okay, that's what I'm asking when I see key updates to the policy, social media guidelines and stuff like that. So that's if a member of council puts something on, a comment on a post
On a
of the
township,
township's
yeah.
post.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, I have some questions and concerns, mostly concerning social media. Knowing that the township, when it uses social media, we're a public body, and when we invite comments back from the public, the problem I find is that some people are offended with some comments and others are not. And I know for a fact that in Canada, there's no such thing as a right not to be offended. But I'm worried about how we get into the moderation of that. Obviously, there has to be some moderation where you don't have criminal and other extreme activities going on. We're not a voice for some terrorist organization. But how do we do that? How do we adjudicate that if there's a dispute of that? Because we're saying we can prevent people from actually commenting on it. So we're taking action against the individual. And then I finally, the thing I see is about fact checks, and agree we have to check facts and correct things that are wrong, but it's the time it takes to do some of this stuff. I wonder sometimes, honestly, in public bodies, if with social media, maybe severely restricting the ability of the public to comment is the best way to do things on public social media.
Thank you, Councillor. I know that I certainly have had discussions with staff around that, and I think that there's different types of messaging where we're sharing information and where we're sharing news and asking for engagement. And so right now, the policy is that township staff moderates that, and I don't know that there is a better way. I certainly, from a council's perspective, where we were pushing for engagement, I don't want to shut down and severely restrict engagement, certainly not. I don't think that's in our best interest as a community to do that, but there is a need for moderation. I agree with you, because in some cases, if it's misleading or wrong information, then it should be. If it's within the privy or the on township messaging, then it's our responsibility to make sure that we're providing accurate messaging. And again, it's a type of messaging, in some cases, we're just sending a message out into the community. And in other cases, we're looking for some engagement. What do you think of that? And this is coming up. There's an open house. We're sharing what's going to be on there. And so if there's concerns from some residents, it's a good opportunity to address those concerns or put them up there. So I don't know that there's a magic way to identify everything perfectly, but I certainly think that the policy as it's presented there does a good job of it, certainly from my perspective. Councillor Armstrong?
That's fine for now. I mean, we're not going to solve that problem here. We'll probably have some time to solve it in the future. The other thing I wondered about, do we have any protection on our logo, on our coat of arms? I think I asked this at the podium many, many years ago, but I'm not sure. Is there a copyright or anything else on our logo so that we can restrict the use of it?
Yeah, so we have brand standards that we have to follow, that we certainly have to follow as anybody representing the municipality. In terms of pursuing people that slander or change that brand standard, there is always the opportunity to go through a legal route, like anything, but it is our brand, it's copywritten, right?
I always assume it was. I'll have to look into it, and I can come back with an answer.
Yeah,
And
and if it's not, I mean, we should take steps to protect it. So if we have to go for a legal route, we are standing on solid ground.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments on this particular item? Madame Camille Laflamme, just noticed Councillor Lauren had to step up for a second. Okay. All right, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item J. The council receives report CAO 2026-01 dated February 23rd, 2026. And 1, receive the 2025 corporate goals year-end summary attached as Appendix 1 for information purposes. And 2, approve the 2026 business plan attached in Appendix 2. Monsieur Godin, merci beaucoup. Anything to add?
Oui, merci, Monsieur Maire. So tonight we're presenting a summary of our 2025 corporate goals as well as the proposed 2026 business plan. So before speaking about 2026, I want to recognize the work completed in 2025. So in addition to delivering day-to-day municipal services, the administration advanced a significant number of corporate initiatives and capital projects. And I want to be very clear, the credit for that work belongs to my colleagues sitting at this table in front of me, as well as their respective teams across the organization. The progress reflected in this report is a result of their planning, coordination, and commitment throughout the year. The proposed 2026 business plans builds on that foundation. It's structured to balance continuity with forward-looking priorities while remaining realistic in terms of organizational capacity. So this evening, we're seeking council's consideration of the 2026 business plan. If councilors wish to propose adjustments, add priorities, or suggest refinements, it's an appropriate time to do so. There's no obligation to adopt it tonight. We can always bring it back with amendments if council would prefer that. So on that, we're open to questions and comments.
Merci, monsieur. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Godin. Quick question. I asked you that earlier on. In the unfinished tasks of 2025 are in the 2026 business plan, correct?
That's correct, yeah. So whatever wasn't completed in 2025 will be carried over in
Okay.
2026.
And so there's roughly 150 goals in 2026. In looking at those, I saw that, like, there was, for example, the rec master plan in 2026 or in 2025 that we're going to be receiving shortly. That's not mentioned on there. Are there other ones like that that are, I'm not sure if they're omitted on purpose or yeah.
There could be. You brought that one up this morning, and And you're right, it's not in the 2026 business plan, although we are finalizing it, so it
Yeah.
will be coming to council shortly. So it is possible that there are a few items that were near the end or almost completed that weren't kind of added into the 2026 business plan. But that's not to mean that's not to say that we're not going to complete it.
Okay. Okay, and council reserves the right to add stuff whenever they want, correct? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer that. Councillor Deacon.
I'm really grateful for these reports. That's great to see, and it's my belief that there will be a lot of positive impact for residents in the work underway this year. I do have a piece of feedback on the report, and that's that I noticed not kind of a standard approach across the departments in terms of what they were including in their business plan. For example, some departments very clearly stated that they would be working on such and such policy, such and such bylaw, while others didn't, and it prompted me to ask, we are looking for example, a tree bylaw this year, an urban tree bylaw. Is that still coming? The rural intersection safety measures framework from back in December. So just if there could be a more standard approach across departments, because when I see bylaws listed in one place but not in the other, I wonder if it's because it's not happening or if it's because it's actually considered by that director to be part of their more detailed work plan, just to help us when we're looking at it. And there was one question I had sent in about the climate action plan. It's come up, it was put on the strategic plan at the beginning of council. We have discussed it. It's come up and asking for updates. And I saw in the report, just because I think that there are a lot of residents locally who are following this and who brought this proposal to the council originally. So if I could just get a clear update on that for any members of the public who are wondering. In the 2025, like when you're backcasting for last year, it said that it was paused, but then in the 2026 plan, it mentions moving forward with it. So just if we could get some clarification for transparency, thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Bourgon.
Well, I don't have much more to add, beside the fact that we went into the FCM program a few years ago, and so did the county. Can't remember, I think it may be even in 24, that the county did appoint a member representative from every municipality to sit on that committee. They did hire a consultant, so we felt at the administration level that why would we doubling the effort when the county are doing the legwork right now? So it's in that sense that we've paused our effort, and we will still be working with the county on that file.
So if I can follow up, do you have a timeline from the county's perspective? Because I remember we did address that at the county level. It was moved to the county level, not to double our efforts. But yeah, we haven't heard anything since.
I'm meeting with that committee on Thursday.
Okay.
That's the first time that I believe that the consultant will be coming up with we did some surveys to benchmarking in last year. So in our case, we simply provided all the info that we have. I think we're in a good position compared to other municipalities in our region for that file. But that's the reason why we paused our effort, was not to double any legwork.
Okay, so Councillor Deacon, follow up?
Yeah, thank you. So I'd be curious to know, thank you for that explanation. I'd be curious to know if what the counties is looking at is in fact the county's level and county's operations, county's infrastructure investment, et cetera, as well. And then they'll be getting municipal, like local, lower tier level information as well. I think when it was initially brought, it was thought that the counties and the lower tier would do it because they would be looking at their business, right? At the end of the day, and their mandate and opportunity for action, for example. So anyways, that's just something that I'll stay tuned on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong?
Just a few comments. One is on the progress from the 2025, and I looked a little bit more at the ones that are orange that are significantly behind. And one stood out for me, and that was the one, define council expectations, KPIs for strategic Objective 5F, Treaty Stewardship. And I noticed it's supposed to come back later on this year, which is fine. But I wonder if we're going to actually ever make significant progress on that one. And I ask that because I know a few other municipalities in Ontario and in other provinces have similar objectives, but the First Nations communities around them have not been willing to participate in municipal politics. So it's just something that I'd comment on when it comes back. Maybe we need a realistic think of where we can actually influence something on that one. And the next thing, because that similar comment came up on the 2026 plan, it's on page 22 of 23, expand the AMPS program. It says strategic objective, coordinate with representative treaty holders regarding stewardship of our treaty and unceded territory. I think we've just got something a little copy and pasted out of place there when I was reading through all of that.
Okay.
And
Sorry, Councillor Armstrong, what number was that?
it
What, page
was,
23?
it's on the 2026 goals. It's on page 22 of 23. Expand the AMPS program.
So we'll take a look at that.
The third down.
Okay, we'll take a look at that.
And that's more
Housekeeping.
housekeeping than anything else.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, members of council? Okay, anything else to add, Monsieur Godin, on that?
Non, merci.
OK, merci beaucoup. OK, alors on tombe à l'item 12, reports from an investigator ombudsman, we have none. Item 13, notice of motions, we have none. Item 14, question period on meeting of the day. So questions are in relation to the agenda. Before asking the question, please fill in your name, sign-in sheet. If you wish to receive a response from a member of council or staff, please leave a phone number or email on the sheet. State your name before asking your question, and disclaimer that by asking questions during the council meeting, you are consenting to be part of a live broadcast and the official recording of the proceedings. Mr. Hunt, how are you?
I had a question regarding the updated bylaw around question period. After the last meeting, it was my understanding that we had sort of discussed adding the live stream questions to that, and I didn't see any of that in the updated bylaw, so I'm just wondering why, or if that was going to be coming later.
Yeah. Madame Camille-Laflamme, pouvez-vous répondre à ça?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, so that's the two items I mentioned at 10.3.11. So one was, instead of one question, it was question. And the other one was this new option will only be implemented once the new website is launched. And the other part was in the engagement plan for 2027.
Monsieur Dagenet?
Yes, we're planning to add that on our action plan of the public engagement for 27 or 28.
Thank you. So it's there, it's not in the procedural bylaw now because it's not possible to do it right now, but it's being planned to be done.
What is limiting us from doing it currently?
Monsieur Dagenet?
Well, I've read the public engagement report, and there was no mention at all about this. So that study has been approved by council. We've done an action plan. It's on a 5-year plan. So we've included a lot in 26, and we're adding more in 27, 28. So we've talked internally, and we're gonna try to add it for 27. If not, it's gonna be 28.
And that's council's position at this point, it was accepted
I'm
position.
just curious how it's not part of that, because I brought it up during the public engagement sessions, and I've mentioned it to every member of council except for Mr. Lauren. Like, we have the infrastructure to do this, so I'm curious what stopped, like, why do we need to delay for 2 years to be able to read comments on a YouTube live stream?
Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. So I can appreciate the comment. A lot of things do look simple and easy, but they have to be done right. They have to be evaluated. And as you've seen in the business plan report, we do have, I think you mentioned 150 from last year, and I think there's a bit more this year. So we're presenting these reports and these plans, and we're attempting to have focus on them to be able to advance them. This is an idea that was brought forward, and it will be evaluated, but at this point in time, it's just not in there.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none? Thank you. All right, item 15, motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 11, reports from departments and council committees. This is moved by Councillor Lalonde, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. It's on the table. I do believe we are removing item C. Madame Camille Laflamme, c'est tout?
Oui.
Right, okay, so this is moved, to remove item C is moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Lalonde. Calling in favor of removing item C, all in favor? And passed, thank you. So now we'll call for the vote for all the items listed under item 11, except for item C, so as amended, all in favor? And passed, thank you. All right, item C, going back to it. Que le Conseil reçoive le rapport CSASFS 2026-07 daté du 23 février 2026 et approuve l'affectation de 46 296 $ et 43 sous des revenus en croissance 2026 des UCPR à la réserve du plan d'amélioration communautaire PAC. 2. Le transfert de solde de 498 291,57 répartis également entre la réserve de croissance municipale et B. La réserve pour l'agrandissement de la station des traitements d'eau usée. Mover, seconder to put it on the table. Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Lauren. Questions, comments, or amendments? I do believe there was a request to defer this item. So who had moved deferral?
I'll move deferral.
Councillor Armstrong moved to defer, seconded by Councillor Deacon. So we have an amendment to defer this item. Call for the vote to defer the item. All in favor? And passed. Thank you. The item has been deferred. Et je pense que ça complète tout sous ce côté-là. Oui, Madame Caméré, on tombe à l'item 16. Excusez. Je perds ma voix. So item 16, motion that council approve bylaws 2026 -19 to 2026-024 inclusively for first, second, and third reading as listed on the agenda. Is there anything to remove there, Madame Camille Laflamme? No. All right, so mover, seconder to put it on the table. Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Deacon. Call for the vote. All in favor? And passed. Thank you, members of council. Item 17, new business reports. We have none. Item 18, other business presented by council members. So 18A was something that was discussed a little bit at our last meeting. So again, there is a request for sponsorship for the Sergeant Eric Mueller Memorial Golf Tournament. And so considering that Sergeant Mueller was an Embrun resident, a member of the Russell OPP detachment who tragically lost his life in the line of duty, protecting our community on May 11th, 2023, in his memory, Acting Inspector Norm Lamontagne, current detachment commander here in Russell, and his committee organized an annual golf tournament where all proceeds go to support CHIO's neonatal intensive care unit. And so I was asking council to consider a sponsorship, either the longest drive or closest to the pin. It's a $600 donation that we could split through all council members. There are higher sponsorship levels. We can do hole-in-one sponsorship at about $1,650. Madame Bourdeau, anything else to add on that specifically?
Not specifically to the to the donation themselves, but I did speak with my colleague, and he did, we did mention that it might be a good idea that this fund would come from the promotional fund of
The council members? Oh,
public
sorry.
safety.
Public safety, okay. And so, what is the current situation of that particular fund? Are we able to do something directly from that fund and not involve
Yes, I
council
could do
discretionary?
the 600, I believe it's 600
Okay,
donation. And
okay. Questions, comments, members of oh, sorry, it's not, just comments from members of council on this? Councilor Lauren?
So then a directive from council is not required, you can just go ahead and do it if that's the case? I
Wait,
would fully
okay.
support it, but if it's not needed, then I would say go ahead and do it.
Okay, good, perfect. Let's go with that direction. Merci beaucoup, Madame Bordeaux, c'est bien apprécié. Item 18B, I have Councillor Deacon, Saint-Guillaume Roundabout and pedestrian crossing. Councillor Deacon.
Thank you. So I was just wanting to mention that the pedestrian crossing to the A&W and Starbucks Plaza, I don't believe that it's maintained during the winter, and I drive around there quite a bit and noticing some very dangerous pedestrian behavior, specifically crawling over the high snowbanks, landing on the road and running across Saint-Guillaume. I'm just wondering if there's anything that can be done from the township to improve safety there until the four-season crossing is enabled.
Thank you, Councillor. Monsieur Bourgon, from an infrastructure perspective.
So for this winter season, there's nothing that can be done. That's why we've passed the bylaw last fall to close that crossing. So it's not maintained by the municipality.
So, well, Councillor Deacon, go ahead, follow up. I know where you're going. Go ahead.
Yeah, just as I'm just curious because on the one side, the snowbank is extremely high, and then on the other side, it's not, it's very low. Is that done strategically to dissuade pedestrians from crossing there?
Monsieur Bourgon.
I assume it's the east side that's likely higher, and that's because of the
It's
plow
just the
pattern.
operation.
So it's a pure coincidence. It's like, yeah, same way if you have your driveway near a corner.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, the recommendation of staff of the administration last fall was to close since they're not accessible. They were not completed, those crossings, so that's why we recommend the council to pass the bylaw to close them in the wintertime.
From a resident's perspective, what indicates that it's closed? The fact that it's not plowed? That's it, eh? So I think what Councillor Deacon is mentioning is that residents are still crossing for a need to cross to get to it. And is there anything that we could do at least to make it a little bit safer from our perspective?
Right now, as it stands from the recommendation from the administration is not to do anything and leave it as is.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong?
If the crossing was open, what would we be doing there to keep it open?
Monsieur Bourgon?
We wouldn't have to do proper snow removal, maintaining as it is a sidewalk.
Thank you. Councillor Deacon?
It's especially tricky for me because I believe that the sidewalk right beside it is being plowed to get to Food Basics and the Tim Hortons there, for example. So it's like if the machine did a 90-degree turn and literally like 3 feet. And anyways, I'm just really
So are you asking?
feeling the predicament.
Are you asking for council to give some direction on this?
I think it's common sense that when pedestrians are behaving not like you expect them to and
adjust?
compromising their own safety, that if there's a quick, easy fix, you would think that it would be possible to do so.
Monsieur Bourgon, is it a quick, easy fix?
We need to change the bylaw first. That's the first step.
So the bylaw would have to be addressed,
Mhm.
and to do, but in
To
terms of
deem it.
operationally after the bylaw's changed?
Well, it's add more stuff to do to our crew,
Yeah, which will
which
be,
is not planned right now in this season.
Thank you. Councillor Lauren?
Well, I don't know what the term is, empathize or sympathize with the fact that people are crossing in a location that they shouldn't be crossing in. I remind council that we had a similar discussion regarding a fence that was put up to block off an area off of Old Town West by the pond, but people were actually using that entrance and exit, and just because they were doing it doesn't make it right, and we can't accept liability if we change something. And I think you put up a fence, and we said, well, take down the fence, and you said, well, then we increase liability. Well, similar here right now, if we haven't opened that road, we haven't opened that crosswalk, are we opening ourselves to liability? And I would say, while it may seem simple to take off the fence or plow a little section, it becomes difficult to do that and accept different liabilities if that was one of the reasons why we put the bylaw in place to begin with, because it wasn't done to standard yet. So
Thank
that
you.
would just be my comment on that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Armstrong?
Today, is there any open pedestrian access to A&W, Starbucks, that area right there?
So you just would have to go around the roundabout and through the other walkway, is that correct?
Yeah, because the both crossing leading are not maintained in the wintertime.
Oh, so both of them. So there is no.
So there
access.
is no pedestrian access to A&W?
Is that correct?
Maintained under our roadway system.
Councillor Deacon?
I'm noticing that area becoming more and more built up especially with the entrance of the Food Basics and that complex, and our ability to provide linkage to those new commercial areas. Can I get an update on when four-season pedestrian crossing to the A&W and Starbucks will be finalized?
Mr.
When we
Bogo?
can expect it to be active?
Well, the first thing, the bylaw to close pedestrian crossing or sidewalk needs to be revisited annually, and that's the main reason why. In the capital project this year, there's work to be done in that area, because right now it's not accessible year-round. So there's still work to be completed, which we're planning to do this summer. So hopefully next fall it will be fully operational and we'll be able to maintain it.
Thank you.
And I need to also say that we can maintain a part of our system, but the owners still need to do this share to meet up to what we're maintaining as well.
When we get to that stage, yeah. Councillor Lalonde, did I see your hand go up?
Well, I was just going to echo, we do traffic studies for vehicles when we see the amount of traffic building, and, we have pedestrian traffic building, of course, and, using terminology now like pedestrian corridors. People are trying to get from A to B to C, and I guess that is the issue. If it's not there now, it'll be there tomorrow on these places becoming attractive pedestrian corridor destinations, Starbucks and all the rest of that. So I think we have to look at that. If that's where people are moving to, if the people traffic is moving that way, and it happens through the winter months, then I guess we need to be mindful of that, and as you say, maybe have to make adjustments to bylaws so that we can follow the traffic pattern.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? All right, thank you. So item 18C, I had received feedback today. I was away for a week, so just to confirm that I didn't miss anything. Madame Guitard, did we receive an update or anything around the timeline for the rec complex that's different from my understanding of it, that we are to open sometime in October?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. No, the timeline has not changed.
Okay. So the timeline in October, activities as soon as we're open, correct?
Occupancy is still for October 16th.
Okay. I just, before I turn it over to you, Councillor Lauren, I would just ask Councillor Armstrong, and without putting you on the spot, I just want to clarify, like you mentioned, there won't be any activity there till January 27 online. Can you just confirm if there was something I'm missing?
No, that was a comment on a Facebook post saying, when can I start planning my children to go there and take them out of services in Orleans? And I said, I expect you'll get everything when that next season is what I meant. In the fall season in Orleans, they'll probably have to pay for if they want to be swimming, I think it was what they were
Yeah,
commenting about.
I think the words, what was sent to me, someone sent to me, so just for clarification, perhaps you can clarify it, but it said, don't expect any activity there until 2027. So just to clarify, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, and again, it's not for any ill will here, it's just to make sure that we're all giving the same message from that perspective, right? So, all right, thank you. Councillor Lauren, did you have anything to add?
Well, no, it was just to make sure that, October 16th, we get the keys. We can be expecting people to be utilizing the arenas. Following that date, we should be people utilizing the rental of the hall, and we should probably be able to take bookings into early, late November, late 2026. And the pool should be active with activities in around October 16th and after, correct?
Yeah, if there is no change, hopefully.
Yeah, and obviously.
Right, as of today, as we
As of
sit here
today,
today.
This is the date that we.
Yeah, and Councillor Armstrong, to your point that was made, I mean, we are tracking it very closely, and there is always that chance of delays, as we know in any major projects, but as of right now, I think the messaging is still the same, that it's October 26th. Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, I'm somebody who utilizes the arenas very, very regularly, and that's one of the items that comes up quite often is, when are the rinks going to be available? And I keep putting out there October 16th as the date that we are supposed to be taking quote unquote possession of the facility. But there's also a lot of misinformation out there where I hear people saying, oh, well, I heard you're delayed until 2027. I hear you're delayed until the summer of 2027. Have you even started building the facility? Like, there's so much misinformation or confusion out there regarding this project. It's beyond laughable at times when people say that. So when I hear and see things like that, it just causes more concern from the public, and there's a lot of doubt from the public, especially on social media, like Facebook and whatever, where people are commenting, well, believe it when I see it. Well, proof is in the pudding. It's right there. It's being built. We have all the dates. As of right this minute, it'll be open October 16th. And that's the date, and that's the thing that we should all be tracking with. So.
Thank you. Councillor Deakin?
I just have 2 points, and the first one is that humans will be humaning, and when there's a lack of information, I kind of take this as a signal because I am starting to get more questions, especially about ice allocation, and when will we know if we can get ice, and will it be different than previous years, and how should we approach it this year? Is it different? Is it the same? And I think that it's worth recognizing that when there is a lack of information, people do start to speculate, and that is in human nature. And so as Township has a responsibility, I think, to be more proactive with communication than ever before. So I would love to see and to get that clarity myself, without loading too much more on staff. I'm also wondering these things. And then the other piece is that as members of council, it's very clearly stated that we don't share information publicly that has not already been officially shared by the administration. So things that come here to council or official announcements that go out on social media, we can share those things, but it's not for us to make the first step at making these announcements. And that's very, very clear in policies that we adhere to. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So anything else? And that's it. I think we covered our 3 items there. 19, public consultations, hearings, we have none. Item 20, announcements. So 20A, public information session on March 3rd, 2026 at 6:15, Phase 2 of Notre Dame Street Storm Sewer Replacement Rehab Project. This is really important for residents, certainly residents from Notre Dame, but definitely I look forward to being there. Monsieur Bourgon, I'm looking forward to that. I know the first phase went off really well and the information session was great. And so I would encourage all council members and our communications department to really promote that, to make sure that we get as much engagements on this as possible. I'm excited to see the next update around that. Other announcements, I've got a few here. So a shout out to the team that worked and organized the local flavors. Monsieur Dagenet, if you can pass on to everybody on the team, Monsieur Godin as well. It was great to see staff in full force on that. I'll be looking forward to getting a postmortem on the event coming back. Certainly the people that were there enjoyed it, and I know that a lot of work and planning went into it, and so very much appreciated for that. I'd like to do a shout out to Captain Scott from the fire services for the Friday bowling event with the challengers. It's always nice to see a strong participation and support for programs by our fire services. So kudos to everyone involved on that. On February 11th, I had the chance in my role as chair of the Police Service Board to have a ride-along with one of our local OPP officers. I could tell you it was an eye-opening experience, and I certainly really appreciated better understanding their role, the coverage in our municipality, and so on. And so that was very interesting. Any other announcements from members of council? Councillor Deacon.
I have 3 announcements. So the first one, on Saturday evening, I represented the mayor at the Russell Legion's mess dinner. It was a full room. The dinner was excellent. Everyone was dressed to the nines, and together we celebrated 80 years of Branch 372, which is especially meaningful as the branch, as most of us know, faced a lot of hardship during the COVID pandemic and then was also hit by a devastating fire, which really limited the amount of activities that had been able to take place. So in light of that, it was extra special to celebrate their resilience, the way that they support our community, especially veterans, and with the volunteers that they have in leadership, who I was thoroughly impressed with and was able to meet that night. I have no doubt that the local Legion will continue to serve and benefit our community for many more years to come. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that Councillor Lalonde was also present, and we found ourselves at the head table, which was really, again, a privilege and an honor to have that experience. This Saturday from 3 to 5 p.m., it will be the first ever Black History event in our community. Thanks again to fellow members of council for supporting that event. There will be speeches, performances, and activities of all kinds for the kids. Everyone is welcome at Salle Camille Pichet, and there is an online registration if you want to sign up and let them know what sort of numbers to expect. The third exciting announcement that I have that came out of the township today was that the Teen Advisory Committee, Our Vote, Our Future initiative has officially launched. I want to say so many thank yous to the corporate services team and the communications team in particular for their support of launching this initiative. And so the call to action right now is to pledge to vote in the upcoming municipal elections and to encourage others to vote. If you see the story on social media or in the newspaper, there will be information there pointing you to a pledge form, which will lead to a reminder closer to the election for folks who do make the pledge to follow through and to see if we can increase our voter turnout in 2026. And just to say 100%, this was totally cooked up by the teens, and I couldn't be more thrilled that we have so many young people in our community who are interested in growing civic engagement of young people. Thank you.
Excellent, and thank you for your leadership around that and chairing that committee. And also thank you for stepping up and helping while I was away for that week. I appreciate it. Any other announcements from members of council? All right, item 21, strategic discussion, we have none. Item 22, closed session. So pursuant to sections 239(2), 3, and 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25, motion to move into closed session at the hour of 8 p.m. to address matters pertaining to sections 239 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25, to consider items relating to 1. Notre Dame Street Improvement Report CS 2026-02. S2C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And S2K, a position or plan or procedure criteria for an instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or behalf of the municipality or local board. 2, culvert replacement, Saint-Pierre Road, Saint-Augustin Road, report CS 2026-03. S2C, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And S2K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiation carried on or to be carried on by or behalf of the municipality or local board. And 3, to review closed session minutes of the regular council meeting from February 9th. And so be moved by Councillor Deacon, seconded by Conseiller Lalonde. Call for the vote to go into closed session. All in favor? And passed. Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute break.